Hey guys, in this video we'll be taking a look at equipment and consumables and how to pick the right ones for your tanks. So first we'll just go over equipment. And your equipment is located down here in your garage underneath your tank on the left. And you'll have 3 slots for tanks tiers 5 and up, tier 4 and up. Tier 3s will have 2 slots, tier 2s will have 1 equipment slot, and tier 1s will have 0. And then also tanks tier 6 and up will have a boosted slot. That'll be the first one in the equipment. And the boosted slot basically just gives a little bit extra bonus to equipment put in that slot that match the category. So for light tanks, the category is going to be scouting. For medium tanks, it'll be mobility. Heavy tanks will be survivability. Tank destroyers will be firepower. And artillery will also be firepower. So in this booster slot, it will matter what you put in here. So I always recommend figuring out what to put in your boosted slot first. And if you don't want to use the boosted slot, that's totally fine. It's not going to penalize your vehicle. And it is possible you can get a second boosted slot when you fully field mod your tanks that are able to get up to tier 6 field mod. It'll unlock the ability to add a second boosted slot, and that's going to depend on what class your tank is. So for medium tanks, it's going to be scouting or survivability. Heavy tanks, going to be mobility or firepower, so on and so on. Along with your standard equipment, you have what's called special equipment, and that's going to be, your bounty equipment. You get these through special events, and normally when they have this one little stripe, that means that they're basically just normal equipment. But you can get it to where it'll have 2 stripes. I don't have any here to show you, but 2 stripes will basically mean that it's actually boosted and it acts like a boosted slot. Then you also have bond equipment. It's going to have the 2 little chevrons. You can only buy them for bonds, or you can earn them in different events like ranked or stuff like that. And they aren't going to matter what slot you put them in because they're always going to give the best bonus. So here on my Object 140, you can see I have this bond gun rammer here. And even if I were to get a firepower slot here in the second one, it wouldn't matter that it's here because it's bond. It's not gonna get the bonus because it already has the maximum bonus it can get. So now we'll go ahead and take a look at all of the different equipment that you can choose if the store will load. Maybe. There we go. So here you can see in the store that it's going to have the category for this piece of equipment in the top left. There isn't a whole lot of them, but they do come in separate classes, and that's just, you click on this, you see this one's class 2, this one's class 1. There's also class 3 for some of these, and a class 4 for the spall liner. And the classes are just going to depend on the tier of the vehicle. So class 1 is going to be tiers 8 through 10. Class 2 is going to be 5 through 7. And class 3 is going to be tier 4 and below. And then all those are going to have exceptions, like I have a class 3 ventilation on my Type 62, which is a tier 7 light tank. And then the spall liner, the classes are going to depend on what class of vehicle you put it in. So there's going to be the light spall liner, basically it goes on light tanks and lightly armored TDs. Medium, heavy, super heavy, those kind of also fall into what their name suggests. but not entirely. There's exceptions for those rules. Anyways, we'll start off with the improved radio set, and that is going to increase the duration that enemy vehicles are going to be spotted by 1.5 seconds or 2 seconds if it's boosted. And then 1.5 seconds or 2 seconds are going to go away from the time that you're spotted. It's pretty useful for light tanks like EBRs. EBRs can probably use this really well. Commander's vision system is going to be minus 15% or minus 20% concealment of enemy vehicles while they're hiding behind trees or bushes, and then minus 10 or minus 12.5% to concealment of moving enemy vehicles. So that can even include them rotating their hull or moving back and forth, except for the Swedish tank destroyers. I believe it doesn't count this as a bonus if they're just rotating their hull when they're in siege mode. Gun rammer, that just increases your gun loading time by 10% or 11.5%. Modified configuration, be plus 25 or plus 35% repair speed, 100% or 150% internal module durability, minus 50%, minus 65% to the damage ammo rack penalty and damage engine penalty, and minus 50%, minus 65% for a chance to be set on fire if you get hit in your engine. So this basically just makes it really hard for you to take module damage, and if you do somehow take module damage, the penalty is going to be a lot less. Really good for heavy tanks and assault tank destroyers. Then we've got vertical stabilizers. That's just going to do minus 20% to dispersion of a vehicle during movement and gun traverse or tank traverse. Improved rotation mechanism. That's going to be plus 10% and plus 12.5% to the gun traverse speed or turret traverse speed. Plus 10%, plus 12.5% to the hull traverse speed, and minus 10% to dispersion during vehicle movement and traverse. So this is going to be really good for your tank destroyers and your autoloaders when you have that extra boost to your dispersion. Excuse me. Also, vertical stabilizers are really good for autoloaders. Then you have your improved aiming device. It's going to be minus 5% and plus 7% to your accuracy, your aiming circle size. It's going to make you just more accurate. Your spall liners, I think these change depending on what they are. No, they don't. Okay. So it's going to be minus 50% or minus 60% to HE shell and ramming damage. So you're going to take less damage from high explosive, and you're going to take less damage from ramming. It's going to protect your crew by 50% or 60%, depending on whether or not it's boosted. You're going to reduce your stun duration by minus 10 or minus 15%. It's going to also decrease the additional stun duration. So if you get hit a second time by artillery, it's going to, that additional stun damage is going to be a lot less. Next we have binoculars. Be plus 25% or plus 27.5% view range to a stationary vehicle. So that's going to mean you're going to have to sit still for at least 3 seconds for them to activate. But they do give you a really good boost in your view range. That'll be for like tank destroyers or passive scouting light tanks. Then you got your coated optics. This is just going to boost your view range by 10% or 11.5% just all the time, no matter if you're moving or standing still. And I should mention that you cannot have both bonuses from the binocular and the coated optics at the same time. It's only going to count whichever one is going to give you the bigger boost. So if you're sitting still for at least 3 seconds and you have coated optics and binoculars, it's only going to count your binoculars. It's not going to also add on the coated optics. So just keep that in mind. Camouflage Net, that's just going to increase your concealment depending on the tank class that you're in. And that's also going to be you having to stand still for at least 3 seconds. Also, for the standing still for at least 3 seconds in these Swedish tank destroyers in their siege mode, that doesn't count them traversing their hull, so they can rotate their hull and they won't lose the bonus from the binoculars or the camouflage net. Vents is just going to improve your crew skills by 5 or 6% depending on what slot they're in, and they can go in any slot. Survivability, scouting, firepower, or mobility. Really useful equipment here. Additional Grousers, probably the least used one, but still pretty helpful. They increase your hull traverse speed by 15 or 20%, and then they also help you maintain speed when crossing terrain types by 10 or 15%. This is also going to be good for like your assault tank destroyers or some of your less maneuverable heavy tanks. Gun lane drive. This is just going to make your aiming circle close in faster. But in order to have your aiming circle close in faster, you're going to have to be standing still. And a lot of people don't like that you have to be standing still for this, so they would rather take vertical stabilizers, which also just decreases the aiming circle size in the first place. So once again, it takes shorter time to aim. If you're going to be sitting still a lot, this is going to be good for like your high alpha damage tank destroyers or your artillery. That's the kind of tanks I would put gun lane drive on. Low noise exhaust. This is going to increase your concealment all the time, whether you're moving or standing still. Not nearly as much as the camo net, but it's still pretty good. This is going to be useful on light tanks and stuff like that. Then you have your turbocharger. It's going to increase your engine power by 7.5 or 10%, increase your top forward speed by 4 kilometers an hour or 5 kilometers an hour. It's going to increase your top reverse speed by 2 or 3 kilometers an hour. Really useful on a lot of tanks. Your slower tanks are going to get a really nice boost from this. So if you're finding your super heavies or some of your heavy assault tank destroyers are moving kind of slow, consider putting a turbocharger on it. And then improved hardening. This is going to increase your hit points by 8 or 10%, your suspension durability by 50 or 65%, your suspension repair speed by 15 or 20%, and then it's also going to increase your suspension's load capacity. So that's going to mean you can carry modules that you might sometimes not be able to in certain situations, like say you're grinding a stock tank. I did this in my EBR 90. The stock suspension on the EBR 90, you couldn't mount the top gun, and I just wanted to get through the EBR 90 as fast as possible, get to the EBR 105. So I put a improved hardening module on this, and I was able to mount the top gun without having to research this extra suspension. Eventually I did research it and I took off the hardening. That's something to keep in mind if you don't have the time to grind out your suspension. You can always pop on a improved hardening piece of equipment and it'll sometimes fix the job for you. And also just keep in mind all of these equipment except for the coated optics and I think it's just the coated optics. The coated optics do not weigh anything, so that's another thing to keep in mind, that your equipment do have a weight characteristic. So you can see right here your weight load limit for this tank, the Object 140, is 39 and mine's at 36.55. So if you're really trying to min-max your tank, get the most out of it when it's stock, you have to keep an eye on your weight and your load limit. And then, of course, improved hardening can help with that. And then you can also get directives that will help out your equipment here. It just depends on what your equipment is. So like I can't put a turbocharger directive on this tank because I don't have a turbocharger in one of my equipment slots. So just keep that in mind as well. All right, now we'll move on to consumables. Should also mention that they do have bundles up here. You can just buy in bulk if you want for equipment and consumables. All right, so consumables, they're going to be used in battle. You can use them multiple times in a battle unless it's one of these premium consumables here, like the food or the gas. Those will just be used one time per battle no matter what. But like your first aid kit, your repair kit, your fire extinguisher, your remove speed governor, those can be used. Actually, no, not the remove speed governor. Those can be used multiple times in a battle. They're just going to have a 90-second cooldown. So starting here, we have the large first aid kit, and that's just going to boost your crew's protection from injuries, and it's going to decrease your stun duration, as well as when activated, it will heal any and all crew members that are injured. Your large repair kit, that is going to give you a 10% repair speed buff, and it's also going to act just like the first aid kit, and it's going to repair any modules that are broken. Then you have your premium food for your crews, and all of them are just going to increase your crew skills by 10%. Each nation has their own. So you can see Czechoslovakia has the WoT, Sweden has coffee and cinnamon buns, Poland has bread with smalek, Italy, of course, has spaghetti with meat sauce, Germany has chocolate, the Soviets have extra combat rations, Americans have queso cola, French have strong coffee, Chinese have improved combat rations, British have pudding and tea, because of course they do. Japanese crew members will get onigiri. I feel like I'm missing one. But this is in the store, so this is going to be all of them. So you're going to have also your Octane Gasoline. There's 105 Octane Gasoline, and then there's also your Lend-Lease oil here and your 100 Octane Gasoline. So these are going to be in your quality oil. These are going to be just improving your engine power by 5%, and 100 Octane Gasoline also does turret traverse speed. And these are also going to just depend on what nation these are. So these will go to certain nations. And then this one is a premium version that's going to be 10% engine power and 10% turret traverse speed. Then we'll move on to small repair kit. This is just going to fix one certain module that you choose. You're going to click on it in your hotbar down there, and then you'll click another number depending on what piece of what module you want to repair. Your small first aid kit is going to be the same thing, but for your crew members. It's going to heal one crew member. Manual fire extinguisher, you're going to have to press a button to extinguish your fire, whereas the automatic does it after one fire tick, which means you're going to take one set of damage from fire no matter what for your automatic fire extinguisher. Whereas your manual, if you're fast enough, you're also only going to take one tick. And then your remove speed governor, that's just going to give you 10% engine power, but if you use it too much, it's going to damage your engine. And then this can only be mounted on certain tanks as well. So that's basically the consumables there. And what I would recommend for tanks, I would always recommend a repair kit and a med kit. And then for your third one, I always do fire extinguishers because I'm too cheap to run the premium food. But do what you want. If you've got the credits, go ahead. You can see for like these Soviet tanks here, you can have the remove speed governor and the Lend-Lease oil. If I were to go to this German tank here, I can't get the Lend-Lease oil or the remove speed governor. Just keep that in mind that not everything is going to be the same. I think like the Americans, they'll have their 100 octane or 105 octane gasoline and stuff like that. So there are no directives for your consumables. It's just boosting your equipment or boosting your crew skills or giving your crew skill. So that was a basic look at equipment and consumables in World of Tanks. I hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you next time.